in your body when you put different. It was somebody else, her son's cells. It was 50% her. Put it back in her tissue, but it still didn't heal her. Didn't kill all the T cells in her bone because we have to have blood to make oxygen in our tissues, and they call it epithelial tissue, protects the body and the organs. The outer layer, the skin, okay? And then I watched her skin peel off in her mouth, and it was terrible. Being with my daughter, watching her just melt and no defenses, so she doesn't have an immune system. And their nerve cells that carry from the nerve cells, I wish everybody will learn about yourselves and how your human biology works because it's so important. We take it for granted, and the nerve cells carry the messages from the brain to the rest of your body by sending electrical impulses. So if you don't know how the body works, please learn. And then after, the nerve cell carries all the electrical pulses, it makes to the muscles contract and breathe and contract and breathe. And you're beating your heart, okay? It's even down to wiggling your toes. A lot of people, when the nerves are cut, they can't do that anymore. But the muscle tissues, they move up the muscles and cells contract. They're short and they relax and they're short and our muscles. But we can learn about our connective tissue, the insulation. But all that is on my mind daily now, which I didn't have to think about that. But I saw everybody die around me because I didn't really understand, even though I was a hospital corpsman in the medical field. But I don't know, organs have two types of tissue that work together, and these systems we need to really be aware of to perform larger tasks. But when, I don't know, everybody knows this, but the first thing that goes in your mouth and your throat and down to your stomach, your large and small intestine, your liver and your pancreas, all that, it's your digestive system, and it goes first when you've got cancer and when they kill you on the inside with chemotherapy. It just eats it up. That thin mucousy layer that protects you goes away. They can't even eat. So I lived for 3-4 months with people, and some of them are dead now. One of the gentlemen we had on here, if y'all may remember, he's already passed. A lot of the people that I know are dying so quickly. There's consequences to not taking care of yourself or being around something you may catch. And so cancer is really, really, really in just about everything. We're eating plastic these days and a lot of things. But the serious consequences of leaving your body and coming back, my body was still able to keep me, and I was able to come back to the same vessel. And now I've always had hypertension since I was in the Navy. And I had already gone through one divorce with my first husband, and I married a little while, and then I got married in the Navy. All my husbands were, believe it or not, like GS 11 or 13, something like that, engineer or in uniform in the Navy. But they put me in a medical uniform, but I was also in security and intelligence. But I was young. I was in my early 30s. So, Bill, I didn't take life seriously, even though I died. I mean, I knew I died, and I was different, and I appreciated life more. But, things like that happen. You still, you just come back in your body and you keep going, right? Your body's working with you. You don't have to think about breathing. You don't have to think about walking and all that. But I did have to learn to walk and talk again in the second grade, and then again at 23 when I had Gigi. And then later on when Tom died, I collapsed, and they said I died again. It said I died 10-10-10. I had some kind of just had to leave my body. And once when I saw Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I thought I was dying because I think it touched so close to home with my belief system. And they said a lot of people came to the hospital hyperventilating and ventilating. But right now the immune system's terribly important, and Gigi doesn't have one. So, to fight off infection. So your body makes certain organisms that, enter and live in you, in your body, and it fights off organisms. So most of us don't even think about how we, cohabitate with bacteria. So all this is on my mind daily, folks. If you wonder why, I'm not doing more radio shows, we have things we have to talk about. And now T cells and B cells, macrophages and T cells, they'll attack the infection usually. They call, they produce antibodies. And my daughter can't do any of that. And I don't know if you think about how good we really are, but how we stay in our bodies is very, very important. So, people would say I've got hypertension, but I've had it since high stress. Stress can cause all kind of weird things to happen to you. So, Bill, try to keep an open mind. And so this is very important to me to think don't smoke, don't do alcohol, don't do street drugs, meaning, if you can't eat, you can have an eating disorder. These have effects on your body, and that's why I think they were called sins, things that you do that are sin, because sins can cause death. Anything you do that's harmful to yourself, they call it spiritually that they're sins to death. There's all kind of ways to harm yourself and others, and we don't want to do that. But staying in the body, that I don't know about that magnetic field, but I do know that I studied it many, many years and, wrote about it and put it in books that I have. But how to help people that really need it every day now, if you have to be around these people that are really sick and can't heal themselves and you feel helpless. And I know there's a lot of people out there. And, Bill, you were a caregiver. You know what I mean? So, but your mother was older, right? But she just passed before your eyes, like Tom passed before mine. So I think an open walk. We need to discover more about how we stay in our bodies, especially when our bodies don't want us there or fighting us. Like my daughter with full-blown stage 4 leukemia, and her body doesn't want her in there. They say there's treatment for cancer, leukemia, lymphoma, breast cancer, Hodgkin's disease, and all of that. And they have advanced vaccines for HIV and AIDS, but do they? Because nothing is working. A lot of people, their body just is trying to get rid of them. So I don't know what to tell people about me coming back in my body, but it's a true story. So I understand the various thought processes, but is conscious? I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to stay in my body if I was brain dead. But maybe that's when the body is still saying, okay, well, we're okay, but your brain's not okay. So they'll say you're dead if your brain is dead and your body's living. So they can still have beating hearts and keep your body alive until they tear out the parts and put them into somebody else. So I don't know. You tell me. We're in a body, and we're talking about a magnetic hold on our conscious or our soul. You can. It depends on each individual, but what is the general? We talk in general. Is that what we do, Bill? About our role in life? Help me out here.
Yeah, I think we do. And like I say, this whole idea of the magnetic field is kind of like an aspect of that design process we were talking about earlier. This is the way it's designed. And maybe, it's a theory at this point, and as I hold with the open walk is that I'm open to the possibility, but I'm not going to say with certainty that that's exactly how it is. I hold that there are other possibilities too, and as long as we haven't completely figured it out, then all these other possibilities are just as possible. So to believe a thing is possible and to believe a thing is so are two very different things.
Well, what I'm learning about all these people dying when they all have the same cancer, it depends on, in the medical world, they go by their age or if they're a good candidate for a trial to test a new drug, and a bunch of them just came out, were approved in 2017. That's, my daughter's trying Viclaxin. Anybody else it gets shots in her stomach every day, and it's like you see the nuclear sign on the bags, and it's going in her. She's literally walking around nuclear with her hair falling out. and but not able to eat. It's a terrible way to live, but it's keeping her alive. So there's medical, and some of the doctors say the Navy and the military and the Army, they have better things to treat leukemia than the general public. And, the government gets the best of care in biomedical research, medicine research, right? Science and the drug development process. And then he's saying, well, I cured 3 people in the military, but I don't have what I need here, in the hospital with my daughter. And she has Humana insurance, so we have to fight every day to call them and get special permission to treat her because we're trying to keep her alive with all these things that maybe it'll keep the body going, but trying to keep her spirit in her body. So I don't know about all this stuff. It makes you wonder about everything you're taught when all these people are dying and they're all equal, or they all have the same. Some are older, some are younger. They look at your body and your age and what you do to it. So people, if you're smoking, quit, because you never know what you're going to get. And you maybe, if you smoke 10 or 20 years, you may get kicked out of something you may need medically, and they don't like people to have street drugs in their body, So it's you learn you're a candidate for something that you may need later, and it causes extra symptoms, and disease and all that. But while you're here in human form, we're going to do our best to do, I guess, Bill, try to keep an open mind, right? But keep a healthy mind if you can.
Yeah.
Open mind and a healthy mind. So on the open mind, let's say, okay, so we don't know really. Nobody really knows what they are. Their ego talks. We think we know, or we do our own study, or we have our own experiences. But do we really know? Can we really keep ourselves in our body? Can we really take ourselves and die and come back without some divine connection? I say no. I think that I would like to say I know because I've left my body on many occasions, but I've also been unconscious, and I've sunk back in my brain, and I felt trapped inside my brain. I could see I had a conscious that fell back in my brain, and I was just swimming in my brain parts. And had conscious thought, and I didn't ever want to go there. I felt like I was in prison as a child because I couldn't get out of my brain, but I could see inside my brain. It was so terrible. My body was laying there. I could feel my body. So there is a consciousness to our soul. Bill, what kind of feeling have you had? Have you ever been caught in that a deep consciousness, or where you couldn't get out of your body, but you couldn't wake up either?
Right, yeah, there's been those times I've had that experience they call sleep paralysis, where you can't move, but you're fully conscious and you can't move. It can be terrifying, actually. But as you talked about your experience with coma, it made me think of a poem that I wrote a number of years ago, which I called "Gusts of Prophetic Wind." And it's basically written from the point of view of someone who's in a coma. And
now, not being the sleep paralysis though. That's different, right? That's like people say when they're sleeping, but they're frozen, and we can find out what causes that nervous system. But mine was, I was so sick with diarrhea, throwing up, like I had hepatitis, and had already gotten sick, and then the next year brought home, and I was laying there, and I was so sick, and my mother and aunt were up over me, but I was in and out of my body traveling. But I knew I had to stay in my body, but I sunk back unconscious, but I could see inside, swimming inside my brain, like figure eights and going around in knots and traveling, and I felt my spirit. It was like a just inside my brain. And that's what one of the doctors told me, that's impossible. How could you do that? He'd never heard of anybody, but that's what it felt like. So I don't know what that's called, but I'd like to help find out what that is. And then, so what are you talking about? Now, sleep paralysis is one level of consciousness, or being stuck.
Right, and that
having
is
an open mind.
you come back out of it eventually.